People do not understand that the erosion of free speech and the erosion of due process is permanent, and it will be applied to issues you care about as well. They don't understand that once those fundamentals are gone, they're gone for you too. All right, we are getting back to the horrible realities of American empire and the imperialist boomerang turning back upon the American population, being launched against American legal permanent residents, student visa holders, inevitably American citizens. Here it is.
One of the latest people to be detained by federal agents and threatened with deportation is a doctoral student at Tufts University. Surveillance footage shows masked plainclothes officers arresting this student off campus Tuesday in Somerville, Massachusetts. Homeland Security officials accuse her of being pro-Hamas, but her supporters say not so. They believe she's being punished for an op-ed in her student paper. Tom Hansen.
It's crazy. It's actually insane. I know I say this quite a bit, and every day is worse than the one prior, but it truly is. This is truly an incredible erosion, like the last bastion of constitutional law, order. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just Baytar's taking credit for this, by the way. Yeah, it is gross. It's some of the biggest psychopaths, like some of the biggest freaks currently on U.S. soil. Basically, the neo-Nazi version of a Jewish advocacy group, which is not even a Jewish advocacy group at all. It's just a anti-Palestinian Islamophobic advocacy group. It's crazy. 2025 was wild, man. We got Jewish Nazis like operating alongside the American government and doing straightforward neo-Nazi shit, you know? Black bagging people in broad daylight for a constitutionally protected right that citizens and non-citizens alike have. The notion that you can detain someone and violently, physically remove them from the boundaries of this state for writing an op-ed that says, hey, Israel's doing a genocide. Isn't that crazy? Maybe we shouldn't be like so closely aligned with them, is psychotic. It's insane. And people don't understand. People do not understand that the erosion of free speech and the erosion of due process is permanent, and it will be applied to issues you care about as well. People don't have this understanding. They can't see beyond their noses. They have horse blinders on. They just think like, oh, well, I don't really care about this Israel shit. Who cares? Whatever. Okay, yeah, they're Arab. They're Muslim-sounding names. They're Muslims. They're locking up. Great. They don't understand that once those fundamentals are gone, they're gone for you too. Let's say you posted maybe something in favor of Luigi Mangione. You're done. You're out. Let's say you posted, I want healthcare. Let's say you said something like, man, airlines are seemingly offering worse quality service year over year. What the f***'s going on? I hate the airliners or whatever. And then the FBI comes knocking down your door. They're like, what'd you say about the airlines? You terrorist. If they can brand these people terrorists, they can brand you a terrorist. And if there's no due process, you have no way of defending yourself. It's that simple. What the f is going on? People don't understand. This is straightforwardly a major erosion of liberal democracy. The last remnants of liberal democracy. It's gone. It's gone. I can't even really think of like a Western liberal equivalent of this, because people get mad. People get mad about like European restrictions on hate speech and stuff, right? They're like, oh, the Gestapo came knocking down my door because I, fat shamed someone or whatever. They just like grossly exaggerate, right? Like, oh, the German police are coming after me because I'm making fun of a politician. That's ridiculous too, by the way, I think. Personally, that's my opinion on it. You know what my opinion on this is. Having said that, the worst they do in that situation is like, you have to cut a check to the government. You got to pay like a $250 fine or some shit. This, on the other hand, you get black bagged in the middle of the street and you get deported. That's an inherently violent act. They ship your ass to New Guantanamo. What is this? I sent rape threats to my local leader. What? And now the Gestapo's kicking down my door? Okay, yeah, if you do that, I mean, that's illegal in every circumstance, for the record. That's not the point. Also, what's really interesting about it, though, is that hella chatters come in here and talk about how they want to gun me down on the streets, right? Like, you keep that energy with the wrong person, you're going to jail. You know what I mean? Like, imagine saying that about, I don't know, another person that pissed you off, really you over, not just like a Twitch streamer that you've been taught to hate because I'm an irrelevant person in your life. I'm only as important as you make it out to be in your brain. But like your boss, you say something lightly critical of your boss that makes him fearful, and guess what? Guantanamo Bay for you, bitch. How is that appropriate? How is that good for you? How are you advocating for this system? How do you not see that this is where we are going? Especially because the FBI right now, since the post Luigi Mangione trial, which also is Luigi Mangione is also being charged with terrorism, something to take note of, by the way. The FBI, according to Ken Leekenstein's reporting on the matter, have basically become a private security force for the wealthy and CEOs. Ken Leekenstein's reporting on the matter shows FBI becomes rent-a-cops for CEOs. Feds are watching your sarcastic posts online as a part of Trump's new war on terrorism. This works hand in hand with what is happening with the anti-Israel protesters. Were they ever not? Not to this degree, chatters, please. Oh my God. Yes, if you do a death threat to a sitting representative, like, yes, you're going to get a Secret Service call. You're going to get an FBI call. That's not the same as this, okay? This is leveled up. They're bragging about it. New Rubio confirmed. Yeah, we're going to talk about the visas thing in a second. Hold on. I just wanted to use this as an example of how this will hurt you as well. Even if you don't care personally about, like, even if you don't care about the situation with like the pro-Palestinian protesters, because you either hate them because of your opinions, or just don't care because you think they're scary Muslims, or don't care because you just don't care about the issue at all. Like, this isn't just like, this isn't just the government coming after tender-hearted, empathetic people that you think are annoying, okay? That's the entry point. It's specifically because you don't care, or they bank on you not caring, that they will do this to students with student visas or legal permanent residents, so that they can open up the floodgates of oppression and escalate dramatically. This pairs up with that aspect of it, okay? That's just the entry point. Using that as a precedent-setting moment, using people who are more vulnerable as a precedent-setting moment, will inevitably lead to denaturalizing naturalized citizens, will inevitably lead to denaturalizing and deporting American citizens that were born on U.S. soil. Have you not noticed that this kind of cruelty under Democratic leadership, under Republican leadership, seemingly only moves in one direction? It never moves in the opposite direction. Have you not noticed that? Are we all frogs in a pan and the water is boiling, but it's far too late for us to recognize? Is that what's going on? It sure feels like it. The FBI assessment, heightened threat to chief executive officers following the shooting of a healthcare senior executive, is dated February 19th and is a striking illustration of the new growing domestic war on terrorism that I've been writing about. The assessment and statements from top Trump officials seek to label growing outrage against corporations as terrorism. The Trump administration has particularly spun up about the spate of arson and vandalism attacks against Tesla automobiles and facilities since the CEO became the plenipotentiary to the world's most powerful man. The FBI document was obtained under the FOIA Act, Transparency Nonprofit Property of the People. If the government truly cares about preventing death and suffering, perhaps tax dollars should be spent on healthcare for the people instead of mass surveillance and security for the wealthy executives, Executive Director Ryan Shapiro told me. Part of the FBI's campaign involves monitoring social media posts supposedly threatening corporate executives. The assessment claims that there has been a spike of such threats across multiple industries since Luigi Mangione's alleged murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in December. That month, I reported on a separate NYPD threat report warning that online reactions to Thompson's murder suggest extremists may view Mangione as an example to follow. The new FBI assessments follow the same line of thought, saying this rhetoric has displayed an elevated threat of violence to executives and highlighted a need for increased situational awareness among private sector partners. Social media threats have risen across all sectors and industries, it adds. FBI Director Kash Patel said during his swearing in that the Bureau is going to carry out the world's largest manhunt against anyone who wishes to do harm to our way of life, as I've previously reported. On Monday, Patel announced a crackdown on vandalism directed at Tesla, calling the acts domestic terrorism. You fart on a Tesla, you're a terrorist now. You do January 6th, you're not a terrorist, you're a brave patriot. Fart on a Tesla, terrorist. Okay, mass shooting, lone wolf. Mass shooting as a white supremacist, lone wolf. Lone wolf, mentally ill. Maybe we should actually release them. Okay, you do a shooting directed at a Black Lives Matter protest, you're a hero, actually, and we pardon you. What do you think is going on? Dumb lib Hasan. Ay, ay, ay. Listen, my entire career is filled to the brim with naysayers that inevitably realize that I was right until it's far too late. This is your opportunity. This is your opportunity to not say, okay, maybe you were wrong, or maybe you were right, Hasan, okay? Until it's far too late. You don't want ICE agents knocking down your door or BORTAC units knocking down your door, and that's your moment of realization that things are far too late. Because at that point, no one will be there to save you. There will not be anyone else to save you, okay? Also, I'm not a liberal. Despite the new counterterrorism obsession to FBI itself says that anti-corporate rhetoric rarely rises to the level of illegality. Lone actors unaffiliated with specific ideological groups are using social media to intimidate high-profile employees, it says. While these threats are often fall short of federal prosecution, they create fear and highlight the need for heightened vigilance against potential copycat attacks. I'll shoot the CEO of U.S. company before I pay that light bill. One of the examples reads with the company name Con Edison redacted. I searched Twitter and found one post matching those words, belonging to user Static the King. The post had 0 likes and just 1 retweet. The post was not a threat. It was actually a snarky response to an attached video from a user depicting ornate Christmas lights around a large house in Texas. I know that light bill gonna be high, the narrator of the video says. This is not exactly the makings of an anti-CEO pogrom. But FBI intelligence, it would seem, is not big on humor. This is an issue I've often seen when law enforcement relies on automated tools to identify threats based on simply keyword searches. It wasn't the only joke that sailed over the Bureau's head. Another example from the FBI document. On the 10th of December 2024, a social media user post threatened to kill healthcare CEOs in reference to Thompson's homicide. The post stated, copycat killers identified, and named the CEOs of multiple major U.S. healthcare companies. The poster in this case obviously saying the healthcare CEOs, presumably health insurance companies, are copycat killers because of all the Americans who die due to lack of coverage. But from the FBI's perspective, that doesn't matter. Is everyone here fans of Hasan or no? Plenty of people who are neutral of Hasan, really. Yeah, it's a social media user's post threatened healthcare CEOs in reference to Thompson's homicide. Yeah, what do you mean? Oh, again, it's as if the FBI didn't bother to think through what it was reading and just saw the words copycat killers and jumped to conclusions. Brilliant detective work from our most premier law enforcement agency. This next example is more disturbing and gives a sense of how the FBI is not just spying on our posts, but acting on what they collect. The laid-off employees of a digital music distribution service posted images and messages of their former company CEO, including altered images and references to CEO Thompson's homicide. The description is so vague it's impossible to tell if these posts were clowning on the CEO or making real threats. Even though the post did not meet the federal prosecution criteria, the FBI didn't stop there, kicking the matter to local law enforcement for further investigation. The assessment reads as follows. As of the 12th of December 2024, following company layoffs, former employees of a digital music distribution service posted images and messages regarding company CEO. The post included altered images and reference to CEO Thompson's homicide. However, the post did not meet the federal prosecution criteria. What's essentially creepy about conflating anti-corporate sentiment with terrorism is that it opens the door to spying on American people. Counterterrorism is literally the business of pre-crime, in which law enforcement and its intelligence arm work to seek to prevent hypothetical crimes of the future, even when no information exists to suggest any preparations. This is the post-9/11 standard that has become the norm when it comes to well-resourced terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, but it should have no place against random shit posters online. Speaking of terrorism and speaking of things that are illegal, I will be interviewing a Cuban doctor tomorrow, straight out of Cuba, as a matter of fact. So we've been working on lining that up to talk specifically about the Marco Rubio statement about how countries that allow Cuban doctors to come and help them out will be considered on a sanctions list, will be sanctioned potentially. So, just to expose the insanity of this current administration, I am once again going to lean into how psychotic they are behaving. What? If you don't consider yourself a liberal, then what do you consider yourself, a centrist? You're more progressive than more liberals? What are you talking about? I'm not a liberal because I am way to the left of liberalism. I think liberals are also somewhat center-right, some of them. Inside of the heart of a liberal, which is the monoculture, exists two wolves. Either one that is waiting to be a radical, a socialist, an anti-capitalist, and many of them have anti-capitalist desires, even if they can't, materialize that, even if they can't comprehend it in and of itself, or a reactionary, depending on how you push people into the direction of recognizing who's doing the harm to you. You can either become a more progressive individual, maybe a leftist, maybe a Marxist, or a person that is deluded into thinking that it's actually the undocumented migrants that is the reason why your, rent keeps going up because, they're your landlord, I guess. Guatemalan migrants are not sitting on the board of BlackRock, okay? An undocumented migrant is not responsible for your boss telling you you have to come into work even though you're sick or even though your immediate family member died and you have to go to the funeral, okay? That's your boss. That's corporate greed. That is the real harm conductor in American society. But right-wingers will actively move you away from that position. They do a very good job with this. And liberals also refuse to reckon with the real vectors of pain in American society and oftentimes concede to the right-wing framing on the matter. Everybody hates the status quo. The Democratic Party acts like the status quo is not harmful, so they look like out-of-touch assholes, elitist, smug, out-of-touch assholes. Right-wingers, on the other hand, recognize the pain that Americans are experiencing and use that and redirect that pain and anger and resentment towards vulnerable populations, undocumented migrants, trans people, people that are not doing anything to you. This is why we need to refer to ourselves as socialists or Marxists instead of just leftists. It's a heavily abused umbrella term and it confuses the partisans. I don't care. No, I'm not going to do that. This is why I also understand that even someone like Bernie Sanders, who is a democratic socialist and open about that, but still presents himself as like a Nordic style social democrat, is still seen as a radical by the liberal intelligentsia. Okay? So that's why I always say someone like Bernie Sanders is still considered like a part of the left, or Bernie supporters are considered a part of the left, even if they're social democrats themselves. Because in America, you have to figure out where the center is of politics, and it's constantly going more and more to the right. And if that's the case, then yes, you have to pick up allegiances wherever you can. You have to bring forward a broad coalition. That's why while I criticize liberals, I understand that many of them are necessary in this battle against the Trump administration. When did he admit to being a democratic socialist? What are you talking about? His entire career. Don't do this thing where you're like, I didn't know that, but that's on Bernie Sanders. And yes, before people say Bernie Sanders calls the genocide a war, or Bernie Sanders never says Israel and always says Benjamin Netanyahu. You think I don't know that? Half of you learned about what the was going on in Gaza from me. You think I'm oblivious to this? Shut up. I know. Okay? This is quite literally an argument where I'm explaining to people how to build coalitions and how to strike up conversations and instill solidarity amongst people that might not immediately seem like your allies. And you're over here being like, nah, dude, no. You know who you have to go after? The people who are technically the closest to your worldview, even if they're worlds apart, especially in comparison to the rest of Congress. It's stupid, okay? It's stupid, it's unproductive, it's idiotic, and that's why I don't really entertain that noise. I don't really care about that noise, okay? If it sounds like I'm exaggerating when I say there's a new war on terrorism, like, think about it this way. Why am I talking about anti-corporate sentiment being tracked by the FBI and being regarded as domestic terror on an issue where I'm supposed to be talking about the Department of Homeland Security grabbing people for saying, for lightly criticizing the state of Israel. The reason why I'm doing that is because I understand that the approach necessary for the average person is to somehow figure out a thing that they might be concerned with. Because this notion that like everyone is as locked in as you are and everyone is as understanding as you are about the situation in Gaza, about the genocide, is idiotic. That is not how you widen the umbrella. All you do is just shut it off. Shut the up. Do you understand? I saw a TikTok about this that's quite funny, actually, that I think is very good at quickly identifying the problem. I'm going to show it to you. I reposted
People
it.
from India complaining about British colonialism.
What the is this? Bro failed at history and humanity? Okay. I don't know what bro is saying, but hold on. Let me find the repost real quick. This is the one I was talking.
To educate and reach people on leftist ideologies and socialism and communism. What are you doing? Why would you interview AOC and Bernie? What is wrong with you? I never liked you. I don't even know why you have a platform. You talk a big game on politics and streaming, but you do this? I don't like you. You've always been weird. Infighting is one of the biggest issues the left faces.
Yeah. I mean, this is it. This is it. It's a waste of space. It's a waste of energy. It's silly. It's dumb. I don't entertain it. I also don't mind it necessarily for two reasons. One, why don't I mind it? One, it's good that there is like a healthy dose of criticism. No one is infallible. No one should place me or anyone else as this like deity for socialism. Okay. I'm not. I'm a person. I'm a human being. And I'm, of course, imperfect as well. There's plenty of things that I do that are not the best. Okay. I'm trying my best. And as long as you recognize that, you can be as charitable as possible. I hope you can be as charitable as possible. Having said that, okay, the other reason why I don't mind it is because more radical voices being out there is not necessarily a bad thing, especially because everyone plays a different role in this process, moving the conversation in the direction that I want it to go to, shifting the Overton window into a conversation that I want it to go to. Okay? That's it. It is narcissism masquerading as revolutionary behavior. Now let's get back to something that every single chatter, for the most part, agrees on. The Department of Homeland Security actively kidnapping American students on student visas, the Fulbright scholar from Tufts University, a Turkish student, for the quote-unquote crime of writing an op-ed in the school paper about reasons to divest from Israel, a genocidal apartheid state.
Has a story.
As federal agents converged on 30-year-old Turkish national Rumeysa Öztürk Tuesday night and wrestled her phone from her hands, the Tufts University PhD student cried out in distress. Öztürk's attorney says she was on her way to break Ramadan fast with friends when the 6 agents confronted her. They appeared to be in plain clothes, wearing masks, and driving unmarked vehicles, prompting questions from Öztürk and concerned neighbors.
Is this a kidnapping?
In a statement, the Department of Homeland Security said Öztürk was detained because she'd, quote, engaged in activities in support of Hamas, adding that her student visa had been terminated. DHS did not provide specifics about those alleged activities. Amid pro-Palestinian protests on campus last year, Öztürk did co-author a 2024 op-ed in the school paper, calling on Tufts to acknowledge the Palestinian genocide and divest from Israel.
Look, it's how do people not see that this is completely insane? This is utterly insane. Like, writing an op-ed on a newspaper is enough for deportation and the revocation of your student visa? Like, what are we talking about? What the hell are we talking about? This is terrifying. The fact that they came in and maybe Bernie will help, right? No, that's great. That's actually what it is. Yes, that is my goal, my hope. This is what I've been saying since I went to the rally and even before. Yes, using all of that momentum that you have to reaffirm that it's not just about showing Trump that he's unpopular, but instead the actual individual policies that this administration is engaging with that are rolling back the last like crumbs of American liberal democracy is not only the smart thing to do, but it actually doubles down on the point that yes, my hope, my goal, I literally just talked to the Washington Post about this. Oh my God. But of course, you guys are children and don't care about anything. You just care about me drama. But yeah, this is the point. This is the point that I'm trying to get across. This is what I want them to do. I want them to use this moment, this opportunity to push, to mobilize against individual actions that the government is taking. Because if they don't do that, then all of this is for nothing.
Peace made no mention of Hamas. Meanwhile, Ozturk's attorney said charges had not been filed against her client, and even though a district judge ordered law enforcement not to move Ozturk outside of Massachusetts without 2 days' notice, DHS confirmed she was being held at an ICE detention facility in Louisiana Wednesday.
If ICE comes to your door, keep your door closed.
It all prompted hundreds of people to protest near Tufts campus last night.
It's so surreal and heartbreaking.
Rayon Bilgey is an assistant professor at Northeastern University. Ozturk was her student in Turkey.
She has never mentioned Hamas, let alone being either anti-Semitic or being anti-anything. These are baseless.
I want to stress the importance of this. By the way, this is why, a couple things. This is why I always say to Western activists to not get, to not think that you can overstep your boundaries. You see a lot of Zionist messaging online where people are actively entertaining death and destruction, saying genocide is happening and we want more of it. It's actually good. If you for even a moment think that as a pro-Palestinian activist, you can say a fraction of that, you are wrong. That's why I always talk about messaging discipline on this regard. Okay? Having said that, even if she was literally being like, I love Hamas, that is not grounds to actually deport someone. That is insane. It is exactly the opposite of what the First Amendment offers in terms of protection to every citizen and non-citizen alike. Do you understand? You should still exercise caution and messaging discipline regardless, as the student protesters did. And even though they did that, they're still coming after these people.
Libelous accusations.
And Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey says she fears this could lead to a chilling effect for international students. I want to read you a quote that she gave. She called it a bad thing for science, research, and the economy if foreign students are afraid to come and study and live here and contribute. Tony.
All right, Tom, thank you very much.
Mr. Secretary, a Turkish student in Boston was detained and handcuffed on the street by plainclothes agents. A year ago, she wrote an opinion piece about the Gaza war. Could you help us understand what the specific action she took led to her visa being revoked?
Yeah,
and what was your State Department's role in that process?
We revoked her visa. It's an F1 visa, I believe. We revoked it, and here's why. And I'll say it again. I said it everywhere. Let me be abundantly clear, okay? If you go apply for a visa right now, anywhere in the world, let me just send this message out. If you apply for a visa to enter the United States and be a student, and you tell us that the reason why you're coming to the United States is not just because you want to write op-eds, but because you want to participate in movements that are involved in doing things like vandalizing universities, harassing students, taking over buildings, creating a ruckus, we're not going to give you a visa. If you lie to us and get a visa and then enter the United States and with that visa participate in that sort of activity, we're going to...
Okay. First and foremost, participating in protest movements is entirely separate than like vandalizing state property or whatever, okay? Even that is not a high enough bar to clear for deportation. I know that these guys act like they are the standalone deity that picks and chooses if they think it's appropriate. It's not, okay? Deportation is an inherently violent act. The revocation of someone's student visa and the subsequent deportation of a person needs to meet an incredibly high standard. This is why it has to go through the courts. The reason why they don't want to do that is because most judges will go, yeah, we're not doing this. Are you out of your mind? We're not going to deport someone for writing an op-ed. That is a First Amendment violation. Most judges would even say, we're not going to deport a student on a Fulbright scholarship in the United States of America if they were actually breaking state property. I hate how much the boundary has moved. I hate how much the middle ground is so permanently slammed into right-wing fascist thought at this point that people are even entertaining this. Okay? It would be very difficult to judge shop. It would not be impossible, but most judges would not allow, no matter what their background is, even if they're a Bush-era judge or even a Trump judge, most judges would not allow a student visa to be revoked and a student to be deported for writing an op-ed. Actually, I would go so far as to say it would be very hard to find a single judge that would be on board with that. Okay? Most judges would not be on board with deporting a student visa for even vandalism. That is insane. That is completely insane. Like, unless a person who has retained a student visa is doing a heinous crime, you're not going to find many judges that are on board with deporting them and revoking their citizenship. This is an act that the government would do for very specific cases. It has to be a heinous crime. It is ridiculous. Delusional arguments? What? Just respond to the point. I don't like that people just go, your arguments are delusional, or you're wrong. Just say what you mean and tell me where you got your counter narrative from, okay? It's so dumb to just be like, no, you're wrong. You can't know you're wrong your way out of this. Just explain. What is your non-existent argument? So the position of the Trump-Vance administration and every member of Congress, unless they explicitly say otherwise, is quite literally, you do not have guaranteed free speech rights in America if you can't say things. If you say things they don't like, that is the headline. That is precisely what's going on here, okay? Speech is not a crime. Speech is not a crime. Until the Supreme Court decides on eroding the First Amendment for non-citizens, and then potentially citizens as well, free speech is not a crime. Hate speech in and of itself is not a crime. Hate speech accompanying another crime can be. Hate crimes are separate than hate speech, okay? If a foreigner came into U.S. soil with a student visa and wrote a piece of paper, and this is not a moral equivalence to anti-Zionist speeches or a demand to divest from Israel at all. I'm talking about something that I consider to be truly abhorrent, morally repugnant, and inherently violent too, like an advocacy for violence. If a foreign student on a student visa came to the United States of America and wrote for Stormfront, you still cannot deport them, okay? That is literally anti-free speech. That's it. That's crazy. Revoking anyone's legal status and deporting them specifically for what they have written, theoretical arguments, is a terrifying violation of the First Amendment. Just because there's not enough movement against this kind of erosion of constitutional protections, and it's seemingly something that they are doing, that they're following, does not change that reality. And if they do change the laws, then I will fight against that as well. As it stands right now, there's two arguments. There's an argument for the morality. Should we be allowed to deport whoever we want? And the answer is no. Okay. And then there's an argument for the legality. It is currently, as it stands, illegal. That is why they're trying to change the precedent. That is why they're trying to set a precedent to make it legal. Okay? What the White House is trying to do in this situation is completely untested ground, untested territory. They want to open up the faucet of pain, and people are falling. People are genuinely sleepwalking in that direction right now. The Trump administration is goose stepping. The Democrats are either sleepwalking or sheepdogging towards fascism. I am not even remotely being hyperbolic on this. This is not an exaggeration.
We're going to take away your visa. And once you've lost your visa, you're no longer legally in the United States, and we have a right, like every country in the world has a right, to remove you from our country. So it's just that simple.
Marco Rubio is trying to conflate. Marco Rubio is trying to conflate the standards that are rigid and also shouldn't exist for the record, but the standards that are rigid for giving someone a visa with someone who has already gotten a visa and is inside of the United States boundaries. Citizens and non-citizens alike have a different set of standards when they are entering the United States of America versus once they are inside of the United States of America. Do you understand? If you are an American citizen right now, Customs and Border Patrol, according to TikTok, I see so many TikToks on this, and according to immigration lawyers as well, are even searching and violating the Fourth Amendment rights of even American citizens. Because right before you enter the United States border, you have a different set of standards. Just like there's a different set of standards for who the American government chooses to give a visa to versus how they can remove that visa, okay? Just like there's a different set of standards between coming into the country versus once you have passed the boundary, once you are inside of the country. That's it. You cannot conflate the two.
I think it's crazy. I think it's stupid for any country in the world to welcome people into their country that are going to go to your universities as visitors. They're visitors. And say, I'm going to your universities to start a riot. I'm going to your universities to take over a library and harass people. I don't care what movement you're involved.
Are you not scared that ICE comes for you and your family? No, because I'm an American citizen and so is my family. Now, the problem here is if BORTAC was coming after me, or because they're, it's a constitutional free zone. Los Angeles is, many parts of the country is. Okay? What you need to understand is if the American government has already moved beyond students and are now going after American citizens, if they're going after American citizens, like natural born U.S. citizens like myself, we've already moved so far beyond the problem that I'm trying to explain here to many others. Okay? We've moved past that. Like if there is like a permission structure of who you can target right now to open up the floodgates, to open up the floodgates of harm and to start blackbagging anyone and everyone that you consider a political dissident, Erdogan style, right? It starts with legal permanent residents. It starts with undocumented migrants. Then it starts with documented migrants that have visas. And then it moves on to legal permanent residents with green cards. Then it moves on to recently naturalized citizens that you can denaturalize. Then it moves on to natural born U.S. citizens. And then it moves on to natural born U.S. citizens who also have the legal means and the financial means to defend themselves. I'm here. Okay. If we got here, it's over for virtually everyone in this chat. Okay, I'm here. I'm on the last stage. That's why I don't like to talk about this too much. I don't want to, center the conversation around myself and my fears or whatever because that doesn't shake my integrity. And more importantly than that, beyond the fact that does not shake my integrity, that doesn't stop me from saying what I'm saying, and it shouldn't stop you either, okay? Because we still at this stage have rights. It also means it's far too late. They're going after some of the least protected people while trying to conflate like pre-existing rules for different aspects, like and trying to retroactively apply standards that don't exist. That's the reason why they're going after student visa holders And that's the reason why they went after Mahmoud Khalil. They didn't go after Mahmoud Khalil because he had a green card. They went after Mahmoud Khalil because they thought he was on a student visa. But when they found that Mahmoud Khalil actually had a green card, they just kind of kept going along with it. But the first round of deportations was always going to be student visa holders. That is how you set a new precedent. Revocation of student visas and subsequent deportation for no crimes whatsoever other than a direct First Amendment protected, constitutionally protected exercise of free speech. Once you set the new precedent that you can go after people and that free speech doesn't matter for non-citizens, and once you set the precedent that due process doesn't matter because these things, the deportations work side by side, and it's not like this is something that they're hiding. Nayib Bukele has literally said he would entertain the notion of having American citizens in the El Salvador CICOT prison as well, the slave labor camp. Once they erode the constitutional protections by entering the argument with, oh, well, these guys are terrorists, they're Hamas, okay? They will use it on newer targets. They will expand. They will expand into new territory. You sound nervous, pal. Again, I'm not gonna repeat the point again, but brother, if you think that your life will improve if this government deports me or revokes my citizenship, you are a delusional moron. By the time the government gets to someone like myself, for deportation, you will have already been melted for biomatter. Okay? Understand that you are nothing. Why would I even care about that? What do you mean? Well, the entire reason why I'm talking about this stuff is so you understand the horrible things that are to come. I'm warning you. Are you really against CICOT? It holds the most inhumane gang members that terrorize citizens? Yes, I am. Do you want to know why I am? Because there's no due process. Read any human rights report on CICOT and you will quickly understand that not every single person that is trapped in those prisons are actually MS-13 gang members. They literally round people up and then do not afford them a trial or a day in court, 800 people at a time. They go boom, boom, boom. You're a terrorist. You're MS-13. And then they put them in this permanent slave labor camp. Yeah. Also, no matter how violent someone is, no matter how inhumane or how big of a terrorist someone is, you still shouldn't be able to torture them. What are we talking about? This is what I mean. The Overton window is so right wing. The Overton window is so slammed to the right that we're just like talking about it where it's like, well, you know, those guys are terrorists, dude. We should be able to torture them. We should be able to do whatever we want to them. It's like, what are you saying? No, of course not. No. I feel like 30 years ago, if you were to say something like that, people would be like, I don't know about that. Even in America, there were protests against Guantanamo Bay. There were protests against enhanced interrogation. The very fact that this became a legal case that went all the way up to the Supreme Court implies that there was enough people that were criticizing the Bush administration for doing torture. The very fact that they had to create a legal process where they didn't call it torture but called it enhanced interrogation implies that there was people going, that's not allowed. What are you doing? You can't do that. Once you set the precedent, it's over. And then you move on to the next stage. This is precisely what I'm talking about. Administrations prior to this that either accelerated this process in terms of warrantless arrests, in terms of black bagging people, sending them to Gitmo, in terms of like warrantless surveillance, like mass surveillance in the American security apparatus, all of these administrations moved the needle into this direction so that the Trump administration could create this process and that a lot of Americans would not look at this and go, the basic human rights for some people? No, thank you. I don't care about it. This is where we're at now. It is terrifying. People read history books and don't even entertain the notion that it can happen here or it is happening right now. What? So you and the human rights advocates are against it, but the majority of the citizens that now have one of the safest countries aren't? I don't know, seems contrarian. Okay, dude. The majority of Germans thought that like it was good that the Jews were being sent to concentration camps. Did that make it appropriate or okay? Or do we now have the benefit of hindsight to look back at that and go, maybe that wasn't the best idea? The fuck are you talking about? One of the safest countries. God damn, dude. How do you not understand that MS-13 is a violent gang, okay? Having said that, basically El Salvador and the government under Nayib Bukele turned into another gang. That's what they're doing. They're doing MS-13 shit. No, he's not talking. This chatter is not talking about America when he says one of the safest countries. He's talking about El Salvador, okay? And I don't think it's safe if the police can just come and black bag you under the suspicion that you're MS-13 aligned, okay? And then you and 800 other people that they've kidnapped are sitting in front of a judge who's wearing a balaclava and decides that all 800 of you are MS-13 members. They make you, they disappear you. This is shit that you see in the movies. This is shit that you're like, oh, wow, I can't believe how fascist and authoritarian this place is. No, there needs to be a process. There needs to be a process. The reason why the police are supposed to be treated differently than a gang, or governments are supposed to be treated differently than a violent criminal gang, is because of rules and laws and standards that are supposed to apply unconditionally to every single person. Okay? If you just operate a slave labor camp and black bag random people, now you're MS-13, or maybe even worse than MS-13, as a matter of fact. What are you talking about? You've become the criminal at that point. It's just common sense. You are delusional. Were the Jews gang members murdering people? Are you out of your mind? You are delusional. Were the Jews gang members murdering people? Wait, what? Do you think the gay hairdresser is actually a terrorist, or was he sent to El Salvador simply because he is brown? Was the soccer soccer coach murdering people? No. Do you think the Nazis were just like, oh, Jews are actually wonderful and that's why we're sending them to concentration camps? No, dumbass. They dehumanized them and lied about Jews. They dehumanized and lied about them until other dumb like you believed it. There's got to be a reason for it, right? This is how it works. They change the laws. Criminals will go to jail. Yeah, being Jewish was a crime in Nazi Germany. That's my point. The same process of denaturalization took place there too. Jews were not seen as like real Germans. They were just non-Germans. The parallel is right in front of you. It's so shocking that you just can't understand it. So some MS-13 members shouldn't be in prison? No, that's not what I'm saying, you morons. Oh my God. No, I'm saying that a shit ton of people that are put in torture prison right now in El Salvador, the CICOP prison, are not actually MS-13, but there's no process where you can verify that because they don't give a f. They just nab you off the street, they kidnap you, and they say, all right, you're MS-13 now, f you. How is this difficult to comprehend? And the American government is sending people without any evidence whatsoever. Like, guys, I need you to understand something, okay? The Holocaust, when it was happening, was legal, okay? When it was happening, when the German government was doing it, they literally did it legally. Slavery was legal. Abolishing slavery was illegal, okay? Freeing slaves, illegal. Slavery, legal. Holocaust, legal. Freeing concentration camps, illegal, okay? Sheltering Jews, illegal. Understand that just because something is legal, just because a government says someone is illegal or is doing a crime doesn't mean that they actually did the crime, okay? You need to understand this. You're totally right, but they weren't deported and executed for being Jewish initially. They were slandered as traitors and criminals until it was implicit to their understanding of Jewish people. Yes, no, that's why I said it didn't start off that way. It started off with dehumanization. Yes, and that dehumanization is happening here for non-citizens in real time. That dehumanization is happening right now in real time in the United States of America for non-citizens, okay? For documented and undocumented non-citizens alike. El Salvador has also taken an old-fashioned playbook page out by using a very real epidemic of gang violence that was making the lives of their people a living hell. Now that they've quashed the main problem, they have and will use the gang excuse forever to strong arm and overreach with impunity. It's not creative, but it will always work as long as there are people like these chatters around. Exactly. I'm going to give you two examples of some of the recent people that this administration has decided to deport to the CICOT slave labor camp, okay? Two examples. I briefly mentioned it. hold on. Where is it? And I'm going to talk about the tough student as well in a second, but here's the story of one of the men Kristi Noem sent there, a guy whose autism awareness tattoo got him interrogated by ICE officers who, despite an agent telling him he was clean, detained him and shipped him to this hellhole. This is from Aaron Reichlin Melnick, senior fellow at IMM Council, American Immigration Council. Okay? This is what happens when you abandon due process. Nery Alvarado with his brother Nellierson in 2023. Alvarado told Hernandez that an ICE agent had asked him if he knew why he had been picked up. Alvarado said he did not. Well, you're here because of your tattoos, the ICE agent said. According to Hernandez, we're finding and questioning everyone who has tattoos. The agent then asked Alvarado to explain his tattoos and for permission to review his phone for any evidence of gang activity. You're clean, the ICE officer told Alvarado after he complied, according to both Hernandez and Maria Alvarado. I'm going to put down here that you have nothing to do with Trendaragua. For reasons that remain unclear, Hernandez said that another official in ICE Dallas field office decided to keep Alvarado detained. This was his autism awareness tattoo. Hernandez, a U.S. citizen who moved to the United States from Venezuela nearly 3 decades ago, searched desperately for Alvarado when he didn't show up in his home country that weekend. He was nearly certain that Alvarado was in El Salvador when he first spoke to Mother Jones on Thursday. I have very few friends, he said. Very few friends, and I've been in this country for 27 years. I let Nery into my house because he's a stand-up guy, because you can tell when someone is good or bad. Later that day, on Alvarado's 25th birthday, Hernandez got confirmation that his friend was in El Salvador when CBS News published a list of 238 people now at CCOT. There's more to it. It doesn't end there. That's who you think should be sent to this slave labor camp. Okay? That's what you are advocating for. Do you think it's appropriate? Do you think this is right? Do you think we're actually making this country better? Another person that they did this to was a soccer coach. Another person that they did this to was a gay hairstylist and makeup artist. There are people with legal permanent residency status. There are people with proper documentation. There was a guy that they arrested, detained, and shipped out to El Salvador for having a Real Madrid-inspired tattoo that they claimed was Trendaragua. One of the other examples that they offered, the Department of Homeland Security itself offered these examples, was that he was doing this in a photo. Literally, this. They said this was a gang sign. If they had real evidence that these people were monstrous criminals, they wouldn't have to violate due process. You understand? They know that they don't have any evidence. They don't want to have any evidence. They want to be able to do this expeditiously without any evidence whatsoever, without due process, because the entire purpose is to erode due process so they can do this to anyone and everyone they see fit. And if you can't comprehend why due process protects you, I don't know what to tell you. When there's no due process, that means, let's say you don't have your license on you. You get stopped. You get apprehended. You have no way of proving your innocence. You have no way of proving your citizenship. Before you know it, you're shipped off in chains to El Salvador. That is the reason why due process matters. Do you understand? I mean, this is it. Yeah. Consider this. 6 people in plain clothes approach you, and then people go, I'd ask why and listen to the reason. It's probably a good one, or they wouldn't have grabbed me. I don't think people understand. How devastating this is and how this will inevitably hurt them. I don't know. People who think, no, I'll just follow the rules, lol, don't recognize that these are all people that were following the rules. We're talking about them right now. None of the people that have so far had their citizenship or had not their citizenship, sorry, their legal status revoked have broken any rules. That's the entire reason why this is a precedent-setting moment. Okay? They are disappearing people and actively saying, we're doing this for no reason. And what are you going to do about it? People literally need to relearn the basics, like how Adolf Hitler rose to power. Yeah, maybe. He's openly saying it, by the way. He's saying, like, there's no I can do it for any reason I want.
Why would any country in the world allow people to come and disrupt? Now, we gave you a visa to come and study and get a degree, not to become a social activist that tears up our university campuses. And if we've given you a visa and then you decide to do that, we're going to take it away. I encourage every country to do that, by the way, because I think it's crazy to invite students into your country that are coming onto your campus and destabilizing it. We're just not going to have it. So we'll revoke your visa, and once your visa is revoked, you're illegally in the country and you have to leave. Every country in the world has a right to decide who comes in as a visitor and who doesn't. If you invite me into your home...
Yeah, except this country also has additional restrictions on what the government can and can't do, and you're trying to violate those restrictions. That's what the Constitution is supposed to do. Rules and regulations restrict regular citizens from behaving in ways that they want to, right? Because it might mean instability if people were just out doing what the government has decided is a crime. On the other hand, the United States Constitution is supposed to restrict the United States government from behaving in ways that could harm you, okay? As long as it's reasonable. The Constitution protects citizens, not illegals, non-citizens. No, that's not correct. You're wrong. The Constitution does protect non-citizens. How do I have this conversation with people who are too stupid to understand this? It does. You wanted to not protect illegals and you wanted to not protect them, but currently it does. And I think that's a good thing. Yes, the Constitution protects every human being on U.S. soil, documented and undocumented, citizens and non-citizens alike. Otherwise, you could just kill tourists. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you want. It's like, hey, oh, are you a tourist? Are you here on a tourist visa? Come here. I'm going to torture you. Like, what are you talking about? Can you imagine? I guess that's where we're moving towards. And these dumbasses want that to happen. Oh. Tell me where you got this information for. Show me where it says in the Constitution that says non-citizen. It says person on U.S. soil. Persons on U.S. soil. Persons. You can imagine and envision that non-citizens are not persons, but they are, okay? It doesn't say American citizens only. Eventually, the Supreme Court extended these constitutional protections to all aliens within the United States, including those who had entered unlawfully, declaring that aliens who have once passed through our gates, even illegally, may be expelled only after proceedings conforming to traditional standards of fairness encompassed in the due process of law. The court reasoned that aliens physically present in the United States, regardless of their legal status, are recognized as persons, guaranteed due process of the law by the 5th and 14th Amendments. Thus, the court determined, even one whose presence in this country is unlawful, involuntary, or transitory is entitled to that constitutional protection. Accordingly, notwithstanding Congress's indisputably broad power to regulate immigration, fundamental due process requirements notably constrain that power with respect to aliens within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. Don't poop on me too hard. I'm French Canadian. Just looked it up. You're correct. My bad. that conversation that took place right there. I know the last paragraph, chatter. I'm going to get to it in a second. That conversation that took place right there is basically what every conversation with a conservative, no matter what nationality, ethnicity, background, age group, no matter what demographic or psychographic profile they have, as long as they are conservative, is the exact same conversation. If you have conservative people in your lives that you have talked to, you've already had this exact same moment where you just go, you're wrong. Here, let me explain it to you. At least that guy, ironically enough, being French Canadian, was like, okay, I was wrong. Most people don't even care that they're wrong. They just go, nope, they move on, do something different. Okay, they just move on to something different. They just go, all right, well, I still think they should die. Like, depending on how reactionary they are. That's why I didn't permanently ban him, only gave him a week off. Wait, isn't this the guy? Did I not give him a week off? No, this is a separate person. Yeah, no, they got a week off. Oh, incredible.
Because you say, I want to come to your house for dinner. And I go to your house and I start putting mud on your couch and spray painting your kitchen. I bet you're going to kick me out. Well, we're going to do the same thing if you come into the United States as a visitor and create a ruckus for us. We don't want it. We don't want it in our country. Go back and do it in your country. But you're not going to do it in our country.
This morning, a Tufts University graduate student is waking up in a detention facility in Louisiana. She was arrested by federal agents outside an off-campus apartment on Tuesday in Boston, and security video shows the moment that she was taken into custody by federal agents. Her name is Rumeysa Öztürk. She's from Turkey, a Fulbright scholar and a PhD student. Her attorney says she has a valid visa.
So I also want to talk about this aspect of it. Where is it? Martha Lincoln, associate professor at SFSU, wrote this thing that I thought was pretty interesting as well, because I also ironically applied for a Fulbright scholarship back in the day. I think I applied for Anne. I don't know where she is. I remember like visiting the Fulbright offices and talking to them about it back in the day. I didn't get it. But Fulbright as a scholarship is about like promoting, liberal values, ironically enough. And I think that's why it's like additionally horrifying, and there is this dark irony captured here. If this happened to an American student who wrote an op-ed while on Fulbright in Turkey, it would be an international incident. Congresspeople would demand the student be returned within the hour. Their intellectual, professional, and political and personal integrity would be defended. The student's cause would likely be further used to sanction and shame the Turkish government. It would be held up as evidence of the enduring American values of independence, freedom, and liberal democracy. The student would be treated as a standard bearer for those values. Fulbright would put out statements. The U.S. Embassy would put out statements. The White House would put out statements. The student would be out of Turkish custody very quickly and put on a plane home with a U.S. official. There would be huge ripple effects in Turkish-U.S. relations. But it's the other way around. Unfortunately for this talented, gentle, and principled young woman, an expert on child development and children's media, no one powerful pointing out how her treatment violates the liberties upheld by the United States and valorized by Fulbright. Öztürk's detention is especially sadly ironic because Fulbright is intended to be ambassadorial. Participants promote the supposed cultural and political values of the U.S. By expressing her convictions in an opinion essay, Öztürk was doing what a model Fulbrighter should. Even the most staid State Department functionary should be able to see the irony of a young Turkish PhD student being the one to teach Americans about freedom of speech and opinion. But in their absence, illustrated by her forcible extrajudicial detention for writing an essay. It's so crazy. I would like to take the moment to apologize for my ignorance. It was pretty dumb. Thank you, Hasan, for doing what you do. Okay, I don't even know what you said. I don't remember. It's already in the rear view mirror. But thank you for apologizing. I accept. Yes, I already covered this. Hasan Reactions is one of the best ones in the React channel.